some technical difficulties with your software today?
Aye, just a wee bit. Plus the fact Facebook are doing the normal, you've been locked out of your account. Isn't that nice?
Lovely jubbly. I mind you did that to me and I couldn't get back into my main account. It took me forever. I had to appeal to the buggers.
I couldn't repeat on a broadcast show what the password I've got for Facebook. But anyway, that's another matter.
No, of course you couldn't, because other people would hack your account, you smarter. Anyway, the reason why we're live this afternoon is because Dave and I are having a wee natter about the gaslighting going on at the moment. And we thought we'd just like you all join in.
Yeah.
You know? And we talk about gaslighting here. We're talking about the you can't have a say in your own future push that we're seeing in the press, especially over the weekend. Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, the irrelevant Keir Starmer, all giving it no on my watch will the uppity jokes get to
Rishi Sunak saying, "Oh, we're going to be firm with Nicola Sturgeon." Yeah.
Aye, we're going to be firm. We're going to put the uppity jokes in their place. And some of the gaslighting has been fucking fantastic. With Professor Michael Keatons of Aberdeen University telling us there's no such thing as a democratic mandate. I thought that one was fucking hilarious. Good afternoon, folks. I thought that was one of the funniest things because according to Professor Keatons up there in the emeritus, should I say retired Professor Keatons up there in Aberdeen, as far as he's concerned, all his uppity jokes have got democracy all fucking rang. We don't vote for political parties based on their manifesto and enable that political party to actually affect or implement that manifesto. You have never heard so much pish in all your life. You know, some of the gaslighting has been wonderful. For instance, it's no longer that the Constitution is reserved because the game's a bogey on that one. There's no Constitution. It's just a matter of English common law and convention, and English law and common law has no standing in Scotland. So the gaslighting has been fucking hilarious. What do you make it?
Ridiculous, man. You know, this thing about Constitution, as you say, that's been sort of like pushed out the side door, and now the Union is reserved to Westminster, right? Which, to be honest with you, is a load of trash because it's a treaty. As you keep saying, actually, it's a trade agreement.
It's a trade treaty. The Union of Parliaments is a different thing altogether. I've got a copy of the fucking thing here, thanks to our good friend Jenny Ellis at the Random Scottish Histories. And this makes a cracking reference book, especially, you know, where the breaches have been in all the different articles of Union or acts of Union.
Yeah.
You know, it's hilarious. But the reason why they've moved to the Constitution's no reserved to the Union itself is reserved is because I keep telling people there is no Constitution. There is no legal Constitution in the UK. There's only English common law, which derives from the Magna Carta and a lot of gentlemen's agreements or conventions, as they call it. A lot of pish. We know for a fact, under the Treaty and Articles of Union, that English law has no bearing in Scotland, and that Scots law and English law are equal. And we've seen that in the prorogation of Parliament case, where the Supreme Court had to back up the Scottish Court of Session, or our version of the Supreme Court's ruling, that the closing of Parliament was bloody illegal.
And also the makeup of the Supreme Court as well. We were just discussing that before going on air. That's quite interesting because it's quite balanced. It's
very balanced. There are 12 justices sat on that. 2 of them for Northern Ireland. There's only 1.8 million people. But there's 5 for Scotland and 5 for England. And that shows the parity of the legal system. And that, you've got to remember, England doesn't just encompass England when it comes to the legal system. The English Parliament abolished Welsh law in 1886, I think it was. Right? But as we know, the people in Ireland, Northern Ireland, are still subject to Irish law and Irish common law.
Yeah.
So even the mad unionists in Northern Ireland are subject to Irish law. Yeah. It's quite hilarious. But it is quite a balanced setup at the Supreme Court. And that will explain why the Westminster Parliament appealed to the Supreme Court not to hear Scotland's arguments in this case. You know.
Either way, it doesn't matter how it comes out. If they say, no, you're a colony, then, well, there's a different route to go. It's as simple as that.
Aye, we just have a referendum under international law.
Yeah.
Under the UN Convention on Decolonising Nations. I mean, after all, it's extremely wrong for your next door neighbour to exploit you. And that's what a colony is. It's another country exploiting a country for its resources and its wealth.
Yeah, which they're doing. Which they're definitely doing.
Yeah, we've spoke about it. I spoke about it in my video the day, you know. When we get right down to it, the only thing that England has got left to offer the planet is professional services. That's the way Margaret Thatcher set up the whole of the UK as she deindustrialised and did away with manufacturing in the UK and basically killed the mix of economy that was in the UK. So England has got very little to offer the rest of the planet.
Yeah.
Very little to offer the rest of the planet except for professional services. And you can get that in New York, Paris, Frankfurt, Berlin, Singapore, Hong Kong. And we're only just naming the big banking sectors here.
Yeah.
You know, but these professional services are available in almost every capital on the planet.
Yeah. There's one thing I want to say about the Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss. At the moment, they are going blah, blah, blah. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to make themselves look strong to the Tory membership. You know, I'll tell those jocks where they can go with their bloody referendum. Simple as that. That's what they're doing. It's to create an image of strength that will get the Tory old gits to vote for them. Simple as that.
Yeah, but we've also got the same crap coming from Starmer and Labour. Even that Labour female politician claiming that the Scottish independence movement should be battered down the same way the Catalonian independence movement was battered down. You know, use violence against them. Mm-hmm. Which is one of the most incredible things I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a professional soldier at one point, and there's no way that Johnny from Manchester is going to shoot Davies' mammy in Glasgow. Because Davy is Johnny's mate. He's his brother in arms. He's not coming up here to shoot my granny. But more importantly, the social contract we talk about between the nations, we're all interrelated. You think Johnny down the road's coming up to shoot Auntie Barbara? You know, this gaslighting that's going on where we're telling you can't is absolute madness. Yeah. Absolutely. And you and I are both agreeing on this, and Nicholas doesn't seem very confident on it. They will cave. They will have to give. Because there is an image of the UK which has been portrayed in the world for so long. It's a union. There's even a treaty. I've just held it up. Yeah. Right? Therefore, it's a voluntary union. And to say that you cannot withdraw from that treaty is to fly in the face of English convention and English law.
Yep.
Because, as we all know, the previous last qualified Attorney General that the Tory party had, Geoffrey Cox, has made it quite public. You cannot hold a partner in a treaty and that treaty against their will. Yeah. Yeah. So what we're actually seeing is gaslighting on a massive, massive scale to try and convince the Scottish people that they're inferior and that their voice doesn't matter. And that's their biggest fear. That we will stand up and say, no, the game's a fucking bogey here. Why should we, the biggest oil, gas and electricity producer on these islands, be paying over the odds for faking electricity? Why is it that you people are reaching off us and expecting us to pay for it? It's phenomenal. And they've seen this coming way back in the 70s and the 80s when Scotland discovered the vast fossil fuel resources off the coast of the north of Scotland and the west coast of Scotland. But the other thing that's making it desperate for them now as well is the climate emergency. They need to rape as much out of Scotland's resources as they can over the next 10 years to be able to set them up in the renewable field. And then, even at that, they don't have the same potential in renewables as Scotland has, so it needs to hold on to Scotland to take their renewable potential. I said this today. England can't feed itself, it can't heat itself, it can't light itself. It has very little in the way of manufacturing base, and the manufacturing base it does have is owned outside England and subject to the problems they've created themselves with Brexit. Little England is in such a fucking mess right now, it is frightening. And they won't listen. We have tried to help them. After all, Nicola Sturgeon did offer up a paper that said the best way to mitigate the worst parts of Brexit is to remain in the customs union and the single market, which were both options. But our friends down the road are that poorly bloody educated and so bloody thick-headed on the idea that England is an imperial power that they just won't fucking listen. They know best and nobody else does. But this gaslighting about we won't allow you to do this or that, that's a lot of pish.
Well, there'll be a lot of people in Scotland that will be listening to that and going, oh, is that right? Oh, well, that's it. We're stuffed, aren't we? And you can actually see it on some of the comments.
They're trying to reimpose a cringe, David. They really are trying to reimpose a cringe.
Yeah.
They are trying to get the Scottish people back in a position they were. You've read the Black Report. I've read the Black Report. We know about West of Scotland syndrome and what happened after the 1970s and 2 years.
I'm broadcasting, honey. Sorry about that. Right, bye.
You know, the dragon phoned me today when I was broadcasting earlier and all.
I thought I'd do not disturb it. Obviously not. Anyway, right. That's Alexa for you.
That was a good point you brought up today, actually. Turn the bloody phone into mute when I'm broadcasting.
Fuck's sake. Leslie, I'm broadcasting, honey. Go away.
Just find the way she wants and sort it.
No.
It's always the safest way to be, David.
She maybe wants a cup of tea. I'm going to have to go down and make her a cup of tea because she's just in the door. Well, she can get it herself, all right. So, right, where were we? Sorry.
We're talking about the gaslighting going on and being told that we can't do.
Yeah.
I have to say that this old story that when they tell the Scots they can't, the Scots say, aye, we can. Because recent history hasn't shown us that. Scotland has become more and more confident in itself since devolution. There's no doubt about that. We have achieved great things since devolution. I listed a few in my video today. No prescription charges, baby box, lower council tax, no road fees, no road toll, cheap bus passes at a younger age, free university tuition fee, no bedroom tax. I could go on. I could list the achievements of the Scottish Parliament since its inception. That includes the early Labour and Labour Dem administrations. You can't sideline their achievements in that short period that they were in charge as well. Because remember, there wasn't a fixed term Parliament Act back then, it was only 4 years. You know, so the history of devolution has shown that the Scottish people were far superior at running their own affairs than what some distant institution in a different country is.
I would say that's not up for question. I think any observer can look at the mess down in Westminster and look at Holyrood and think, well, Holyrood's obviously able to do things a lot better.
That's because it's a mere model parliament. It's got mere rep. I mean, whether we like the voting system or no, it has a fairer share of the representation of the views of the people of Scotland. The other thing that's helped us since the SNP came into power is the SNP is such a broad church because there are people who want that independence and the ability to make better decisions right across the political scale, from Conservative, Labour, SNP, and Liberals. Right across the political scale, there are people who recognise that Scotland could make better decisions and better use its resources for the benefit of the people. And why do we come to that conclusion? Because of things like the 10-year council tax freeze, because of things like free prescriptions, because of free education, because we've done away with road tolls, because we issue a baby box, because our pensioners get their bus pass 6 years earlier than England. These are political decisions. These are policy decisions that they have made work on a limited budget, which shows you that we roughly get 60% of Scotland's produced revenues back to run our nation. With 100% of the revenues, think about what we could actually achieve.
And all the other taxes like VAT or hydrocarbon tax flowing into the Scottish Exchequer as well, because that's not counted.
No, it's direct taxation that we get a percentage share of our money back. What they take for us, the working public. We're not talking about import, export tax. We're not talking about fuel duty. We're not talking about tobacco duty. We're not talking about 175 billion in unclaimed alcohol alcohol duties that are sitting in Scotland's bonded warehouses right now, which are all assets which can be used for future borrowing and future needs.
And as I've said in the past, the oil under the seabed, providing you can give a rough estimate as to how much that is, that also behaves as an asset which you can borrow from. It's when it gets pumped out of the seabed that it changes from being an asset.
We only have to stop using hydrocarbons for fuel. We don't have to stop it for things like plastic production or where it's fractionalised, doing it into very thin oils that are used in things like medication and in paints and things like that. I mean, there will still be a use for fossil fuels. It just won't be as polluting. But I mean, let's get back to the track here because we're having an important
finish that, right? The Clare Ridge oil field, right? It's massive. When the first eventually told us about it, they took a picture of, if you like, of London with Heathrow at one side and Stansted at the other, and they cut that great big lump of land. You could drop it in and not touch the sides. That's how big it is, right? But also the fact of the matter is it's a light, sweet crude. It's the best quality crude oil that you can get from an oil field. That means it can be used for medical. It can be used for high-grade plastics, that sort of thing, right? So, the resource that Scotland's got is absolutely immense. It's phenomenal.
David, you and I were involved in the expose, the West Coast fucking oil fields, and we know that they've already actually issued licenses for 1,200 plots off the West Coast of Scotland.
Yeah.
It's all there in the McPhail report. You and I put it out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's out there for people to look at.
Right, so, but
we're talking about gaslighting here and how we've been told we're not allowed to ask ourselves a question, and how I mean, one of the funniest things was Alan Carey, the BBC, telling us that Scottish people are somehow subhuman because the Human Rights Act doesn't apply to us because the UK is a modern democracy. And the UK is not a modern democracy. The UK isn't even a meritocracy. The UK is a fucking dictatorship, and only those and such as those can get into power. And that depends on what tie you're wearing down that road. And up here.
Aye.
If you've got the right tie and a network of schools, you're in.
So, the question is, we're being gaslighted. That's a given, right? How do we manage to get people to go, no, fuck you, Westminster, and get them in that mindset? Now, okay,
we don't go to Westminster.
David, hang on, right? At the moment, we're running a little protest. It's a low-level, legal protest to get people to cancel the direct debits. Now, if we get a good enough response from it, and we get enough people doing it, they will see there will be a visible effect on the energy companies. That straight away will feed into the population, and they'll realise that if they work together, they can achieve all sorts, because the real power isn't in Parliament. It isn't in any Parliament. It's in the people.
Aye, but you've got to remember, Brexit showed that the people in England are desperate to take back control and off of these muppets. It was the wrong move, but let's face it, they haven't had referendums, so they can't work out what they did wrong the last time. You know, but it did show there's appetite for change down that road.
Now you've been
Hello.
You've been maybe more involved on the UN side, right? And the idea is that the UN, the United Nations, could step in and could help us run a referendum. Am I right in that?
They could organise it and hold it for us under the UN's decolonising policy.
Yeah.
And the right to self-determination is no. It's not questionable when it comes to the Scottish people. It isn't. Scotland's a recognised country, and it's recognised as being in a union. You see, the United Nations doesn't recognise the UK as a country. It recognises the UK as a state.
Yes.
The same way it recognises the United States as a state.
Yeah.
The same way it recognises the federal state of Germany as a state. Right. So the UN recognises that Scotland as a country with a right to self-determination. So Scotland already has a UN delegation. Depending on how things turn out in the Supreme Court. I mean, the minute they declare that we don't have the right to ask ourselves a question, that makes us a colony. That changes the rules of the game.
Yeah.
You know. And unfortunately for the UK, they've signed up to all these UN treaties. And they want to throw them out the window and isolate Little England even more, to the point where nobody will deal with them.
Yeah.
Then the answer is no.
No, but that is actually becoming an issue because of the Northern Ireland Protocol getting shuffled out the side door. Then what's happened is the UK, and unfortunately that includes Scotland, are being seen as a pariah state.
You've seen that with the Chagos Islands.
Yeah.
The UN ruled that they should be returned to the people of the Chagos Islands. And then the Supreme Court in London ruled that the Chagos Islands should be returned to the people of the Chagos Islands. Who owns the Chagos Islands? At this point in time, it's actually a rental property. The UK, in order to ruin it and make the people of the Chagos people start again, was they rented it to America as a military base. So the people of the Chagos Islands are having to go to the United Nations again and say, we want it back to America now.
Yeah.
They're not above bending international law. And we've seen this especially with the crime syndicate down that road, they know. But when you get down to the basis of what's going on in Northern Ireland, then you get down to the basis of democracy. 53 of the 90 MLAs are in favour of the Northern Ireland Protocol. The majority of the people voted in the MLAs on the fact that they were pro the protocol. Northern Ireland, for the first time in 30 years, is booming. And that's because they have access to 450 million more customers than we do. And that means that Westminster doesn't like it. A colony outstripping the main, that's no good.
Aye. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we have the JERS figures, to suppress the fact that the Scottish colony has been outstripping the rest of the UK for years.
Guys, just on that, right? If you get a chance to get a hold of the video that Professor Richard Murphy put out, where he talks about the JERS figures and the fact that they're a load of nonsense, do get a hold of it and share it out, okay? Unfortunately, as usual, Facebook are trying hard to stop me from sharing anything. Hence the reason why we've got this new software going into Facebook and YouTube. So, but get that video from Professor Murphy. It is a particularly good story he tells. And also he talks about the deficit as being a load of bunkum, and that Scotland would be largely debt-free when we go independent. So, but sorry, back to what we're talking about. Yeah.
Oh, good point. Professor Richard Murphy goes through it very thoroughly. His videos are available on YouTube under Richard Murphy.
David. Thanks, Linda. Thanks for joining the protest. It's nice to know you've cancelled your direct debit. Thank you very much.
Aye, thanks. That is important. I was reading today that those on old prepaid meters in Scotland may struggle to get their discount. Mm-hmm. And what I also remembered when I was reading that was something that you had said about the poorest being whacked the fucking hardest. Those on PP meters are the poorest, and they're going to struggle the most to get the assistance that they need. What's also interesting is there's a third more people on prepaid meters wanting control of what little they have here in Scotland than what there is in England. So it tells you something about the wage disparity as well.
Yeah, we know there's a wage disparity between Scotland and England. We know that.
The minimum wage in England is about 30 grand. The minimum wage in Scotland is 24.
Yeah, that's right. But but you can see that this was almost a.
Sorry, no minimum wage. I do beg your pardon. Let's get this right. We don't want to make a mistake here. Not the minimum wage, but the mean wage, the average wage for the average labour. So in Scotland it's 24, in England it's between 30 and 36. They say.
But we can see that because of the number of people that are on prepay meters, it was an identification, a bit like the banks, of somebody being subprime, right? They identified people that were subprime and effectively got those on prepay meters as quickly as possible. And that happened a lot of years ago, right? And it's been happening regularly. So,
well, it's a different situation. You remember the banking crash?
Yeah.
When the banking crash happened, we cleared off all our debts, and then we asked the electricity company and paid them to put a prepaid meter in because we could afford the extra £2.50 a week to take total control.
Why didn't you not just go and stand order out of interest?
Never thought of it at the time.
Right, got you.
I thought the best way to take control was to be able to decide what I was spending on these things.
Yeah.
So we actually made the conscious choice to pay the extra £2.50 a week in standing charges, up to a wee bit more than that now, to have control of what we put in, what we bought, and how we spent.
Yeah.
Which was very important because banks were precarious back in 2008. Nobody knew it was going to happen.
Yeah. But now the prepay meter thing is becoming a massive burden.
It is for the majority of people, David. It still doesn't affect you.
you know, the
As we earn enough to no bother about the £5.60 a week.
The high flats round about us and a lot of them use the storage heaters. And there's one story I heard going about where a young lassie with a baby is pumping 50 quid a week into that just to keep that storage heating going, because otherwise it would become very damp, very cold, very quickly. And you know how bad that is to keep a baby in. So it's a ridiculous situation. And yet again, it has to fall to those with slightly broader shoulders, those who run a direct debit like they used to do, which was, and you were told, oh, what we'll do is we'll take a wee bit extra during the summer so that it covers you for the winter months. Now they're raking us. Now they're scooping your bank account as hard as they can. I've heard people saying they've got a blooming balance of £1,500 or £2,000 sitting in an energy company's fucking bank account. That's ridiculous. That's fucking ridiculous, and that needs to stop. And that's why we need to send these bastards a good fucking message. Slap their faces, kill their cash flow, kill the direct debits.
It's nice to see you passionate about this, David, as I say, but that's why I took control.
I've tried contacting Western Bartonshire Council of Provost. That was 2 weeks ago. All I wanted was a phone call, and we'd have a discussion about I'd put his labour, I'd put my politics in my back pocket for the good of the people in this area, and just say, what have you got? What are you doing? What have we got here that we can put in to cover people during the winter, where they're going to be fucking freezing in their own houses and they're going to have nowhere to go, right? Well, has he contacted me? Has he? Fuck. His name's Councillor McAllister, right? And the bastard's getting the blooming brunt end of me if I ever see him, right?
Right, hey, calm it, Janet. Jesus, calm it, Janet. As you know, at the weekend, David, it's been discussed UK-wide about public institutions opening up places to create things called warm banks. Now, you think about that. That's where people who can't afford to heat their housing go to get warm. Wow.
Then they go
and then they go back to their cold tank hovels in England. And why do I say in England? Because down that road they voted down, making landlords make rented accommodation fit for human habitation. To me, that was just the funniest thing that they've done since Bojo came to power. You know, it also means that the new builds will be built to lower standards because they don't have to be by law of a habitable standard for human beings. You'd be as well throwing up pig troughs everywhere. That would sort out the cost of that. That would sort out the housing crisis UK-wide. Mental. You know, absolutely mental. David, Alexander says, name and shame the law, Paul. And it's nice to see you getting a wee bit anti, David, because it's not something you normally do. That's normally me.
If they don't blooming do anything, I will name and shame the whole fucking lot of them. Because the only chance we've got with that, I mean, I could go to the Scottish Parliament and try and talk to Nicola Sturgeon or whoever, or one of the MSPs, and see if I can get something done. But the councils take a huge chunk off us, take a huge chunk off the Scottish Parliament each year. It's time they put up, and actually their wee trips abroad come to a blooming fucking halt, and actually put it in the pockets or put it in for services for people that actually live in the area. So councils, I'm coming for, see, after independence, I'm coming for you bastards. I'm going to rip you all out of that blooming...
Oh, yeah. Easy, tiger. Jesus. This is before the watershed. Yeah. And the kids are home from school at 4 there. Oh, it's summer holidays. That's why Davey goes out early in the morning so they don't hear me getting off my chump. Teenagers especially are still in their bed at that time of day.
I'm getting very angry.
I know you're passionate about it, David.
I even wrote to the Clydebank Post yesterday, trying to get them on board. And I was expecting a phone call off them today after a very, very a good email that I put together. and I've had nothing so far. Okay, they might ring me tomorrow.
David, your passion is up there. I mean, Nanny is want our fellow citizens to freeze this winter. You know, as I say,
if you
the
read,
idea is being floated.
If you read the private messages that I've had coming through, we women that are blooming pensioners, and they just don't see a way through. What do you say to them? What on earth do you say to them? There's nothing you can say to them. You know, it's an awful.
I get the same thing, David. What do I do? I shut down the camera, I put my hands on my head, and I cry.
Yeah.
I've been doing it since 2011, when it started with the persecution of the disabled.
Yeah.
You probably didn't see the broadcast I did about 4 or 5 years ago on what was happening. I was in Sens, Scotland, getting my lunch when the announcement was coming through about how disabled benefits were going to be fucking hammered. And you could see the horror in these people's eyes as they're there with their kids in a safe place. You know, me as a truck driver, I went in there because you get a cheap lunch and you get a good quality lunch.
Yeah.
And the people were always welcoming. You know, and they understand your passion on this one, David. We all understand your passion on this one.
I can see a disaster happening, and I'm doing.
There is a call on. Yeah. I mean, even right now with COVID, they're allowing that to run mental.
Yeah.
You know, 3.7 million carriers, and that is affecting our older population because they're the poor buggers that are dying. The over 50s, that's you and me.
Yeah. Guys,
that's your audience.
Listen, guys, seriously, see your own community. You are going to have to draw together like you've never done before. You're going to have to watch out for the wee woman down the road and all the rest of it, lives on her own. You're going to have to make sure she's all right and make sure that she's that either she's run the heating a bit, or you tell her to come for a cup of tea. Give her somewhere to go. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's like this is basic. We're going to see these people die. Do you really want?
Actually, there's a correlation between both of these things we've just spoke about. The fact that the cost of living crisis is pushing people together means that this infection is going to kill more elderly people because we're going to have to bring them together and warm banks, as they're calling them, in order for them to get through the day. Like that wee woman in England that's riding the bus on a free bus ticket because she can't afford to heat her house, so she's on the bus to stay warm. And what was Bojo's response? Oh, I introduced that bus ticket. What a spanner.
Exactly.
What a spanner. Listen, David, this is just an impromptu chat for you and I, and we thought we'd allow everybody in to have a wee listen. But
don't forget, we talk like this all the time.
I know. That's what I'm saying. We're just putting people in to listen to how this is the sort of thing that goes on in our lives, folks. These are the issues that we try and look at and address on a daily basis. That's why I do my videos. It's why David and I talk to each other and we try and influence what's happening in our communities. You know, but it's time to wrap this one up because I'm hungry. So it's time to put this one to bed. I'm going to get something to eat. And as you know, it's my day off, so I've had a couple of beers.
Really, really thanks for watching us, guys. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do, because we still need to get the numbers up. We know that there wasn't much notification of this because it was really just a case of testing the new system and going live with the 2 Davies, chatting away. So thank you. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you. We don't need your money. We only need for people to share what we do. All right. Sorry about the bad language, chaps.
I don't want bad language. Fuck, I swear all the time. I don't care about bad language. Bad language is a good sign of intelligence. It means you're angry enough to be upset at the situation. You know. But anyway, say bye, David.
Bye, David.
Right, guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed David and I having my normal afternoon natter. That's the sort of things that we go into in depth every day. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back on Thursday for our usual broadcast. And if something mental comes up in the meantime, which could well happen because this is a mental time on these islands, we might well pop on again. Bye the now.